Chapter 646. In the spacious starlight courtyard of Star Lake Fortress, commonly known as the lumberyard, soldiers, guards, workers, farmers, and many others gathered together to form an open space. The atmosphere was lively. Go, go, go. Give her a good one. Yes, that's it, float. Wow, that's a good fall. It's okay, believe in yourself, lad. Get up and continue beating her up. Io, your sword is so soft. Are you always like this? Are you having too much fun, or are you hoping for your wife to cheat on you? In the center of the open space, Miranda Arun's figure moved agilely between two warriors. She was engaged in an unfair 1 versus 2 duel with the guards of the Star Lake Guards, Ness and Bastia. As usual, the young Vanguard trainee attacked like a tidal wave and became more courageous as the battle progressed, while the Iron Tower-like guard officer stood firm and impenetrable. And what's that, an iron bucket or an iron tower? On the wooden watchtower, the fortress flower Sonia leaned against the railing and leaned half of her body out. She waved her arms enthusiastically and cheered for the battle below. Don't just stand there, pick up your hammer and hit her head with all your might. That's right, what, that's it? Does it get into a pit when you pee? In the storeroom on the second floor, Thales sat by the window and watched the battle with great interest while oiling and maintaining the ancient sword, Sentinel. He quickly realized that although it was 1 against 2, Miranda was the one leading the battle. The swordswoman of the Arund family deliberately instigated Ness to continue attacking to deplete his stamina, while forcing Bastia to act as her shield to block Ness's blazing attacks. Unfortunately, Ness and Bastia's teamwork was not smooth, and their hands and feet were tied. There was no sign of the advantage of a 2-man pincer attack. Just like that, Miranda skillfully controlled the pace of the duel, and as the battle progressed, she became more and more proficient. She's different. The feedback from Hell's senses allowed Thales to make a judgment. Compared to 7 years ago, her movements and footwork appeared disorderly and casual, no longer displaying a distinct rhythm and style. But whether it was Ness or Bastia, the moment they initiated an attack, they would find themselves in the worst possible situation, giving Miranda the biggest opportunity. It felt as if Miranda was not the one taking the initiative, but the opponent was rushing to attack her, shaping the environment and situation of the battle, stimulating a bunch of originally messy and meaningless notes into a lively and orderly movement, waiting for Miranda to play it. She's improved. Thales stopped what he was doing and was slightly lost in thought. 7 years ago, her movements clearly showed the style of the northern offensive and defensive. The transition between offense and defense was like an undeniable stress that could instantly turn the tide, but now. No. Although the style of the Tower of Eradication's Pegasus faction is rather influential, her foundation of the northern faction is still there. Mallows sat next to Thales and sharpened a short knife without raising his head. It's just that the tactical style on the surface is hidden in a deeper tactical style. You will understand once you see more of it. Here it comes again, King of Constellation Yuyen. Thales curled his lips sarcastically. So, you've seen quite a lot? It's not that bad, Mallows replied calmly. When I was still a young probationer, I did record work. So, which battle left the deepest impression on you? Here. Thales raised his head. Mallows did not stop moving. He only switched to another side and continued to polish his blade. A long time ago, an elite from Star Lake Fort sparred with a senior of the Royal Guards. I was ordered to be the flag-bearer's assistant. I listened to his explanations while observing and recording. An elite from Star Lake Fort, a senior of the Royal Guards. Thales narrowed his eyes. Due to the limitations of the conditions, they did not attack each other. They only shifted their positions on the flat ground to attack and defend. Their power of eradication was like a flash in the pan, like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. It stopped abruptly before it was fully displayed, so they could not enjoy themselves to the fullest. Mallow's gaze was slightly dull. But in those short 12 seconds, the two of them advanced and retreated, back and forth. Every detail was at the peak of supreme class or even higher. It's enough for me to reminisce for the rest of my life. Thales was about to ask further when he heard boos erupt from the crowd. Miranda sheathed her sword nimbly and turned around elegantly. The crowd consciously parted to form a path for her to leave. Behind her, Ness and Bastia collapsed to the ground, one exhausted, the other bruised and swollen. The outcome has been decided, Your Highness. Mallows did not even turn his head. Now, follow the essentials I taught you and focus on maintaining your weapon. Order was restored on the training field. Everyone returned to their positions. Those who practiced and those who were on duty. Only in a small corner, a few Star Lake guards were still gathered together in a heated discussion. They were not satisfied with this exciting and asymmetrical battle. Quick, quick, quick. The outcome has been decided. Those who bet must accept their losses. Doyle squeezed through the crowd with a righteous look on his face, but he flashed a coin pouch under his elbow. Before Mallows comes down, don't try to cheat. I remember who bet how much. Damn it. Losing when it's 2 against 1. How unlucky. Vladivostok painfully counted a few coins and threw them into Doyle's coin pouch. The others who lost the bet, including Ralph, who snorted in dissatisfaction, also took out their money reluctantly and stuffed the coins into the coin pouch. I know she's in Broken Dragon Fortress and belongs to the Fortress Flower. Paul Bosdorf, the son of the Count of Black Lion, calmly handed over a gold coin. But I didn't expect, you don't have to keep the change, that she's fighting 1 against 2, and she's actually not at a disadvantage. You bastards. How did you know to bet on her? Korsta asked in annoyance. It's obvious that she's killed before. Her sword is stained with a lot of blood. At the front of the team, Glover rejected the coin that Doyle handed over. He looked at Miranda's receding figure with a sharp gaze, eager to fight. Quite a lot. Chief Miranda's swordsmanship is quite profound. I've experienced it before. But gambling is still wrong. Waya looked around nervously. I don't know the Arund family's girl, but I saw Old Kong bet on her, so. Logistics Officer Praka shrugged. Actually, I don't know Miss Arund either. But when the Fortress Flower let them fight 2 against 1, I knew that Ness would lose. Don't ask me why. Commodore, who was on the winner's side, coughed. When he saw the dejected Ness walking over sullenly, he immediately went up to console him. Hey Ness. You fought well. Just a little unlucky. Keep up the good work. Oh yeah, I'll treat you tonight. Doyle, who pretended to be indifferent from the waist up and happily counted money from the waist down, was the shortest. Prince Thales is up there, staring at that girl. Everyone looked at him. What's wrong? Doyle raised an eyebrow and hurriedly put away the money pouch, as if it was a matter of course. This is very telling. All right, His Highness is finally paying attention to women. Everyone hissed in disdain. You'd better not let His Highness or Miss Miranda hear that. Waya sighed and shook his head. I'm speaking from experience. Of course. Doyle confidently weighed the money pouch in his hand. He was in high spirits. In the storeroom on the 2nd floor, Thales, who had already heard this through Hell's senses, turned around indifferently. Thor, how many people in the Star Lake Guards do you think can defeat Miranda? I don't know. Why Thor? Tormund's nickname. Take a guess. Nicknames have to be agreed upon by the person herself. After all, the people in the Star Lake Guards have never fought against Miss Arund directly, and battles are also affected by the environment. Mallows was meticulous in his sharpening of his sword. In terms of one-on-one duels in the arena, I dare say that Glover and Doyle, who have undergone strict night training, can take on Miss Arund. Thales raised an eyebrow. Is he that fierce? Mallows did not answer. He only twitched the corner of his mouth. But if Doyle were to encounter Miss Arund in a battle of life and death in the wilderness, the watchman put down the sharpened blade and cleaned the crumbs on the table. I hope she'll be merciful and give him a quick death. That exaggerated? Thales frowned, but he rolled his eyes. What about you? You, against Miranda? Mallows took out the oil to protect his blade and smiled when he heard that. Miss Arund and I. It's 50-50. Wow, Thor, you have such a long face. Pardon me? Oh, my face is long. I mean literally. Your Highness, I'm even more curious about what you mean by literally. Don't. You must know that curiosity killed Thor. Thank you for your teachings, Your Highness. I dare not forget it. Thales snorted mockingly. But in the next second he suddenly said, Did you know he was coming? The question caught him off guard. Mallow's hand that was oiling the knife paused for a moment. Know what? Who's coming? What for? Mallows continued his work. His tone was calm and unperturbed. Tormund Mallows. Thales stared at the watchman in front of him who he could not fathom. He recalled the moment they first met and pondered the identity and position of this personal guard captain. He was the personal guard appointed by King Kessel, the watchman of the royal guards, and the person with the highest status by his side. But Mallows, what kind of role would he ultimately play between Thales and the king? Attendant? Protector? Instructor? Watcher? Or traitor? Thales stared at Mallows for a long time and finally shook his head. Nothing. Then, do you know what I'm going to do now? Mallows' expression did not change. He was unperturbed. Sharpen the knife. You have to learn how to take care of your weapon. Looking at him and listening to his ambiguous answer, Thales could not help but sigh. He handed the oiled sentinel to Mallows for inspection. All right, Thor, let me ask you this. Who can you trust in the current Star Lake Guards? When he heard this nickname, Mallows sighed as well. He took the imperial sword and helplessly checked Thales' maintenance. People I can trust. Why are you asking me this? Thales raised an eyebrow. Because I'm the one paying your salary? In the face of Thales' answer that changed the focus, Mallows clearly wanted to probe further into the question of whether he was the one paying his salary or his father, but the Duke's covetous gaze made him give up on the idea. The watchman raised his head and sighed. People I can trust? Your Highness, are you saying that I can trust that they will bow down and work hard without complaint, or that they will go through fire and water without hesitation? If it's the former. Mallows swung his long sword and his expression became stern. The Star Lake Guards are carefully selected elites among the royal guards. Most of them have the title of royal knights, and they are all heroes. Mallows twirled his sword and put Sentinel back into its scabbard. Then this martial arts lesson ends here. You've done a good job in maintaining your sword. I mean, the thickness is still a little uneven, but at least you're starting to get used to it. Thales stood up to receive his sword, but paused the moment his palm touched the scabbard. I realized that I missed a question. Tormund. Thank God. Mallows was glad that he did not call for Thor. I'll be happy to answer, Your Highness. Thales raised his head and looked straight at Mallows. Is this scabbard useful? Mallows frowned slightly. Thales pointed at the scabbard with Sentinel in it and said meaningfully, After all, since ancient times, swords cannot escape from their scabbards. Mallows was silent. His fingers stroked the scabbard. It looks like good leather, but you'll know when you use it. But Thales stared at him. Then I'll be straightforward. Among so many people in the Royal Guards, can I trust you, Tormund Mallows? Mallows' gaze sharpened. At that moment, the two people in the storeroom stood opposite each other. Both of them extended their right hands and held up the ancient sword, Sentinel, which lay horizontally in the storeroom. Mallows was expressionless. He was silent for a long time. Finally, he gently loosened the scabbard. Perhaps you should ask me in return. Can you not trust me? Thales stared at him for a long time, let out a long sigh and took Sentinel. I hope that your skill with the sword is as good as your skill with sarcasm, my dear head of the personal guards. Then you've underestimated me. Could it be that your swordsmanship is actually not bad, but you're hiding it? No, I mean, I haven't even used half of my skill with sarcasm. Thales pursed his lips and was speechless. Coincidentally, I also have a question to ask you. Mallows turned around, put away the short knife he had sharpened on the table, and inserted it into the scabbard in front of his chest. When you have a rendezvous with someone late at night, you don't like to go through the front door, and would rather climb over the window. At that moment, Thales, who was holding Sentinel, froze. Mallows narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms. I remember telling you that the air corridor will turn you into a meat pie one day? Thales widened his eyes and used all his strength to blink. I don't really understand. Oscar and Doyle were just sentries in the open, Mallows said calmly. When you met the Fortress Flower, Lady Cecere, Itariano from the Command Division was on a hidden sentry duty in a deeper area. He saw all of you clearly through his binoculars and immediately reported everything to me. F***CK. He really knows. He's not lying to me. Thales was exasperated in his heart. Mallows snorted softly. Wait a minute. Your Highness. You wouldn't be so stupid as to think that the defense of Star Lake Castle is useless, right? Who knows? Right, little dummy. Thales came to his senses and coughed. Of course not. Well, I know that all of you are nearby, so I'm not worried. But Thales thought of something, and his expression changed. Wait, so all of you must have seen Sonia attack me, but you did nothing? Attack. Mallows looked nonchalant. I'm sorry. You're so famous that we all thought that was your new trick. This pen is so annoying. Thales resisted the urge to roar. Why do I have this feeling that one day, I will be killed because of you? In fact, Your Highness, I think this should be my line. If it is, then that's great. Thales smiled sarcastically, waved his hand and turned around. All right, that's the arrangement here. Next he would head to South Coast. So Your Highness in the future. All right, I got it. I won't climb walls anymore. I swear, the next time I want to play with women, I'll walk out of the front door openly, beating drums and gongs. I had Tang Xen pull the safety rope outside the window. Mallow's voice rang behind him. Next time before you climb walls, remember to tie it up first. Safety rope. Thales' waving hand stopped in midair. He turned around in a daze. Safety rope? Torment you. Mallow sighed softly, feeling helpless. We've been together for a while, Your Highness. I know I can't stop you from being silly, stupid, sick, and jinx. Thales' expression darkened. All right, this pen is really annoying. Just like that day, I couldn't stop you from getting out of the carriage, or rushing out recklessly to fight someone. But I don't want to order a coffin for you, Your Highness, or for me, or for anyone in this castle. Thales furrowed his eyebrows. So before you go on this long journey, if you can be merciful and take pity on us. Mallows crossed his arms and pointed outside the window with his thumb. Safety rope. Mallows nodded lightly, turned around, and left. Staring at his back, Thales felt complicated for a moment, and did not know how to react. Thales lowered his head and looked at Sentinel in his hand. The size of the scabbard was just right for holding in his hand. It should be the same when I unsheathe the sword? Thales took a deep breath. Hey! Thales called out to Mallows. After returning from Renaissance Palace, I haven't had the chance to say it, but... Thank you, Thor. Damn it. Mallows sighed in his heart. Why did you change the way you addressed me? Thales walked forward and pursed his lips. I know, I'm a boss who's not easy to serve. I'm impulsive, childish, self-righteous, and always make stupid decisions to embarrass you. I'm almost terrible. You can remove the word, almost. Mallow's expression did not change. This pen. Thales used his strength to flatten his eyebrows, which were scrunched together tightly. He took a deep breath and said, But thank you for helping me all this time. You've covered my back. Thales gulped. Fortunately, he did not blurt out, covered my back. Damn the Secret Intelligence Department. Mallows stared at him with puzzlement in his eyes. Thales tried hard to speak. Especially the day I barged into Renaissance Palace. Thank you for leaving manpower and contingency plans for me. Thank you for reminding me before I entered the palace, and the matters after that, all these and so on. Mallows furrowed his eyebrows. He looked at him as if he was looking at a lunatic. Thales forced out a smile. All right, it's not really suitable for me to say these sensational words. The Duke had a stiff smile on his face. He spread his hands, turned around mechanically, and left. Anyway, thank you. And the royal banquet just now, Mallows suddenly said. Thales stopped while he was in the middle of turning. What? Mallows exhaled through his nose. I have to add this to the list of things you should thank me for. Thales reacted and coughed awkwardly. Oh yes, and this, thank you. And the days in Mindy's Hall. Thales could only nod in agreement. And the days in Mindy's Hall. And the day I came back from Western Desert. Thales closed his eyes and sighed. And the day I came back from Western Desert. And the management of Star Lake Castle. Thales repeated numbly. And the management of Star Lake Castle. And that's enough from you. Thales could not take it any more. How much longer do you have to count? Mallows smiled. You're welcome, Your Highness. This is part of my duty. His smile at that moment was very much like his usual polite and slightly sarcastic professional smile. It was very similar. I dare not accept your generous thanks, the watchman said faintly, turned around and left. Thank you, my foot. Thales rolled his eyes at his back and swallowed the words, then I'll have to trouble you this time. He also threw the tiny bit of gratitude and a tiny bit of guilt towards the watchman into the bottom of Hell's River, and prayed that they would never be reincarnated. Mallows was very efficient. In just the next day, everyone knew that Prince Thales was about to leave for South Coast Hill to visit. The entire Star Lake Castle was thus in operation. Everyone was busy preparing for the Duke's long journey. Many people also began to be curious about the Duke's goal and mission. Unfortunately, such a top secret could only be known by the informant B, who was buried in the deepest part of Star Lake Castle. But Thales did not expect that after the news of the Duke's journey spread, the first person to come to him would be this person. Forget about the fortress flower. She also thinks highly of herself, and is as unapproachable as the rumors say. At the door of the Duke's room, Paul Bosdorf, the son of the Count of Black Lion, who was patrolling past, looked at the cold back of the person who entered the room and sighed. I was thinking of exchanging some pleasantries. Doyle, who was chewing on a sausage, closed the door and shook his head in denial. No, no, no. I'm not arrogant, and I'm not unapproachable. Trust me, no one is born with a sour face. Doyle swallowed a mouthful of sausage. Girls at this age are forced to be blunt and aloof. They are also the best and most direct form of protection, especially for women who have to work with men. Compared to being approachable and smiling, doing so can save a lot of unnecessary trouble. Paul frowned. How did you know? Doyle stroked his hair and made a cool pose. I wish I didn't know, but I can't help it. I'm gifted. Paul sneered and shook his head. You understand a girl's mind so well. It should be easier for you to please them and be popular. Paul stared at him. But why is it that when I arrived in the capital, everyone in the circle said that you are pompous and frivolous, so much so that you have a bad reputation? Even unmarried girls from good families stay away from you? When Doyle heard this, his smile froze. But in just 2 seconds, his expression changed. He turned around and winked at Paul. Hey, that's because you don't understand the good things about a mature girl. Paul was speechless. But, she's not married yet. Paul sank into deep thought. Coming to Prince Thales in private at this time is a little... Doyle's expression became solemn. Oh, you don't have to worry about that. I asked Waya before. It's true Waya. Oh, you don't know what true Waya is. It's okay, it's Waya anyway. First of all, Prince Thales and Doyle are old acquaintances. They fought together. Secondly, I believe you can see that she's not one of those rich young ladies who only have love in their minds. Doyle blinked. He chewed and swallowed the last mouthful of sausage. He was confident and resolute. So, I'm sure of one thing. She and Prince Thales, meeting at this time, will definitely not talk about romance, marriage, or love. In the room, Miranda? Thales, who was copying the sunset scripture, making up for homework before class, was surprised and delighted when he saw the newcomer. In front of him, the cold swordswoman picked up the cup of tea on the desk that he had yet to drink without hesitation. Madam. What? It's Lady Arund, Miranda said coldly. You're a prince, so you should address me appropriately. Thales' face darkened. Really? Again? Isn't it enough for you to mess with me? You want it too? All right, Honorable Madam Miranda Arund, the daughter of the Duke of the Northern Territory, the glorious descendant of the Snow Eagle family, the proud chief seat of the Pegasus of the Tower of Eradication, the Sword of Neverwinter of Cold Castle, the flying falcon in the sky of Broken Dragon Fortress. Thales had no choice but to push the scripture aside and lean back. Welcome, what can I do for you? Miranda put down the teacup expressionlessly and stood in front of his desk like a sharp blade in the snow, cold and sharp. Yes. Miranda stared at him with an indecipherable gaze. A few seconds later, she took a deep breath. Her gaze was firm. Do you want to marry me? With a bang, the legs of the chair shattered. Thales fell on his butt on the floor. Chapter 647. Thank you, I'm fine. It's okay. It's just that I have to. Damn it, this chair was just ordered not long ago. Thales held Miranda's hand and used it to struggle up from the broken chair. Miranda quietly watched the boy in front of her. Perhaps he was a teenager now. She watched him pull the broken chair in a flustered manner with a rich expression on his face. This reminded her of the Bright Moon Temple 7 years ago, the little boy who stood on a wooden box covered in dirt, but still waved his young fists and roared, "Are you coming?" Miranda could not help but curl her lips. All right, I give up. Next time, I'll have to ask them to find another carpenter. After a flurry, Thales could only raise his hands in resignation and announce the end of the chair. The moment the young duke raised his head, Miranda's smile disappeared. Now, Your Highness, can we get back to the main topic? The main topic? What? Oh yes, that's right. So what we were talking about just now is, do you want to marry me? When he thought of this, Thales' expression became solemn, and his voice deepened. Are you joking with me, Madame Miranda Arund? Marry Miranda? It felt like the bargaining chip he used to threaten others had come true. In the next second, he seemed to see Raphael Lindbergh appear in front of him. His eyes were glowing red, and he sneered maliciously. This made Thales' expression tense. In the face of the tense Duke, Miranda's expression remained the same, and she was as calm as ever. No, this is not a joke. Even if it is, it's not funny. Looks like you know it too. At that moment, countless thoughts flashed through Thales' mind, including, she's working with that Baron Bone Boy to take revenge on me. He took a deep breath and straightened his back. All right, if it's not a joke, then my suggestion is, I'll look for Grandmother Valencia and Mallows, and maybe Stone from the logistics division. We have to hold a meeting to discuss the livelihood issues around Star Lake Castle, especially the quality supervision of traditional handicraft products. We'll also deal with this chair, or what's left of it. Miranda did not speak. As for you, Madame Arund from the standing military camp of Broken Dragon Fortress, as a typical example to promote the closeness between the army and the people in the Central Northern Territory, go to the kitchen and order a cup of mate tea, then. Thales waved his hand and pointed resolutely at the door. Come find me when you're sober. What a joke. I'm in an important position with heavy responsibilities on my shoulders. I have to attend to a myriad of affairs every day, not to mention the end of the world and the pain in my tailbone. But Miranda did not leave. Instead, she scrutinized Thales from head to toe, as if she was inspecting goods. But you haven't answered me. The swordswoman's tone was cold, and her gaze was aggressive. You, Thales Jadestar, do you want to be my husband? Fuck me. No, no, no. Thales took a deep breath and kept reminding himself that he was now the Duke of Star Lake. He had to maintain his manners and grace, and pay attention to the rhythm of his speech. I'll F** King be your sister. Miranda was stunned and did not understand. But in the next second, Thales grabbed the swordswoman's arm and pulled her to the side. Are you crazy? Thales lowered his voice and looked at the door warily. I'll marry you? Do you know that saying this will cause a huge uproar? Jadestar and Arund, Renaissance Palace and the Northern Territory, the relationship between them. Do you know what will happen to the people outside if they hear what you say here? Do you know who is in charge of collecting and handling information and public opinion in the kingdom's secret department? Miranda looked at him. Her expression did not change, but she slowly loosened her grip on the hilt of her sword. You're the same as before, Your Highness, the swordswoman replied with a cold snort. Once you're nervous, you're especially talkative, and you say crazy things that no one else can understand. I'm nervous? I'm talkative? That's because you haven't seen the prince's ass. Thales' expression was originally cold, but when he looked at Miranda, he remembered how they went through life and death together, especially when he remembered her life experience and her father's misfortune. He could not help but sigh. All right. Thales pulled her to the window, as far away from the door as possible. Then he exhaled impatiently. Tell me what happened. Is it the anniversary of our breakup, or is it a revenge affair? Are you in such a hurry to find a new lover? Miranda stared at him carefully and frowned. Hey! Don't tell me it's Mr. Raphael Lindbergh who secretly went to Red Street Market to flirt. Thales clapped his hands and said sarcastically with great comfort. In the end, he left behind records and witnesses, and you found out that you wanted to break up? When she saw Thales deliberately changing the topic with another name, Miranda snorted coldly. This has nothing to do with him. Thales shrugged. Of course. Sorry, it's my fault. I forgot that you're an independent girl, so no matter what happens, you won't use other people's mistakes, especially your ex-boyfriend's, to punish yourself, and you won't trouble others. But Miranda's expression turned cold. She took out a letter and a portrait from her bag and stuffed them into Thales' arms. It has something to do with you. Thales was stunned. He lowered his head and opened the letter in his arms. This is a greeting letter from you personally. Miranda said disdainfully, Not only did the letter describe in detail the 700 years of friendship between the Jade Star and Arund families, it also included many people who were of equal social status and were a match made in heaven. It also praised my family's reputation, appearance, and achievements. It even kindly inquired about my health and mental state. Finally, it quoted an ancient love poem to express your longing for me and lamented the loneliness of being single for so many years. It also asked for a recent portrait of me in the letter. At that moment, Thales froze on the spot. His previous endless dignity and coldness instantly turned into embarrassment and embarrassment. Well, maybe it's just a daily. Miranda ignored him and continued to speak. Scholar Alpasoni said that according to the kingdom's tradition, this is in fact a marriage notice. Thales gulped unnaturally. Actually, it's not that. Then? Of course, Lord Bustamante removed all the polite words and rhetoric and helped me summarize a sentence. Miranda glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. Do you want to mate? It's really my problem. Thales put down the letter with an expressionless face. The room became completely quiet. Kessel Jadestar, I will never forgive you. My dear Lady Arund. Thales tried hard to ignore the god of war who was unleashing his demonic energy to destroy the world in his mind. He suppressed the urge to barge into Renaissance Palace again and forced a smile. He was gentle and kind. If I say that this is my father's idea, and I had no prior knowledge of this thing. Oh, it really drew me pretty well, would you believe me? Your father's idea? Miranda stared at him. Her sharp gaze seemed to see through more things. After a while, she untied her sword, supported herself with one hand, and sat on the windowsill. I believe you. Thales sighed in relief. At least Raphael, whose eyes were glowing red, disappeared from the bottom of his heart. Since the misunderstanding has been resolved, I am actually preparing to go on a long journey. Why don't we talk about it later? So, Thales Jadestar, Miranda spoke again. This time, she was extremely serious. Do you want me to be your queen? Thales paused again. *T. Thales sighed. He was no longer as awe-inspiring as before. He could only smile helplessly. You asked this question before. I did not, Miranda said coldly. They are different questions. Thales' smile disappeared. It seemed that at this moment, everything was different. Which part is different? Thales leaned back and sat on the desk. Is it mine, or queen? Miranda sized him up for a while before she snorted and shook her head. It's a pity. If our marriage was real, it could solve many problems, from the right to rule to the right to inherit. Thales fell silent. It can solve many problems. The key is what problems? You don't want to sit there. Thales looked at Miranda, who was leaning against the windowsill. He said gloomily, when the sun is at its hottest, a few cats are used to coming to my study to cool off. The food and water in those bowls are prepared to feed them, so that they won't push their luck and enter my room. Cats? Miranda frowned and saw a few bowls by the window. Thales crossed his arms and sighed. If they find out that their old place has been occupied, they, especially that cunning old black cat, will be unhappy. Then they will start to give me a headache. Miranda was silent for a moment. It's okay. That's why I'm carrying a sword. Thales furrowed his eyebrows. Sword? Isn't this a little too cruel? Will it be crueler than the problem you encountered at the royal banquet? What happened? Thales took a deep breath and said seriously, Well, Madame Arund, what I just said was not a political metaphor, but a literal meaning. There will really be cats wandering around here. Miranda was stunned. After this interlude, the two of them once again fell into silence. Miranda spoke again. By the way, I went to the Sunset Temple a while ago and met Aunt Licia. Li who? Miranda ignored Thales. Priestess Meljen was there as well. For the sake of your reputation, they asked me to bring some words that were not convenient to say to the prince directly. Priestess Meljen, some words to say to the prince. Thales was shocked. I'm really writing. The prince subconsciously pointed at the copy of the theology lesson on the table. Tell her that she can hand it in tomorrow. Not that. Miranda glanced at him in disdain. She said seriously, Priestess Meljen said that the period for the internal investigation of the temple is almost here. If you show some understanding to Sister Nia and don't want her to be so anxious that she has to rummage through chests and cabinets every day, quickly return the 3 books that were stolen from the Forbidden Book area. Forbidden Book area, stolen. Thales originally heaved a sigh of relief, but his smile froze on his face. One of them is Archsea City Enlightenment Collection, and the other is Hidden Records of Exorcism. The last one is... Miranda took out a note. High Priestess Petruzzelli's top secret notes. Wait, Petruzzelli. Isn't he the Sunset High Priestess during the era of the Ascension King? The one who presided over the killing of children as an offering to the gods. Thank you. Thales snatched the note and forced a smile. I know now. Miranda pursed her lips. Aunt Licia also said that if you want to borrow some books next time, you don't have to be a thief. You can just say it directly. Don't worry, she won't tell your father. Thales felt as if his face was burning. The atmosphere became a little awkward. Then, Miranda spoke to break the silence. I heard from Wuxia that you are going to the south for an inspection? Which Wuxia? Oh, you mean that Wuxia? Thales nodded and sighed slightly. Yes, it's obvious that everyone is busy with their work. Since even someone like me, who is known to be unsuitable for a house and home, has received it. I guess that quite a number of suzerains in the south have also received your Do You Want to Mate? Quite a number of suzerains in the south. Thales looked as if he had just eaten a fly. Regarding this, I cannot disobey my father's orders, he said sarcastically. And the king's orders cannot be changed. Miranda's voice was cold, and it made Thales' heart tremble. What is she trying to say? Thales said seriously, Listen, Miranda. I'm sorry, it's Madame Arund. I'm very grateful that you came to see me, and I'm also very sorry that my matters have caused you inconvenience, but if there's nothing else, enough, I don't want to beat around the bush with you anymore. Miranda cut him off directly, and her next sentence made Thales stunned. I'm here to help you. Help me? Please forgive me, I don't quite understand. Miranda glanced at him, and it was just a glance, as if she understood everything. But it made Thales very anxious. Stop pretending. You are definitely not going to the south for a blind date, the swordswoman said with certainty. Based on your habits, everywhere you go, the capital, the fortress, Dragon Cloud City, Western Desert, will not be peaceful. Ha! Thales was stunned at first, and then he scratched the chair indignantly. Star Lake Castle is very peaceful. Only a few rats died. At most, I'll add 2 more chairs. But Miranda ignored him. And no matter what kind of shady business you want to do that is inconvenient to talk about, you need trustworthy and competent people. It would be best if they are acquaintances who have worked with you before, and have even gone through thick and thin with you. So, I'll go with you on this journey. Shady business that is inconvenient to talk about. Damn it, what does she know? At that moment, Thales and Miranda's eyes met. Since you don't like to beat around the bush, Madame Arund, Thales said doubtfully, I know that our experience in Dragon Cloud City is unforgettable, but our friendship doesn't seem to be so good that we can help each other from afar. Miranda did not answer immediately, but stared at him. Her eyes were different from the others. They were calm, cold, sharp, and had a vague sense of alienation. Right. The Duke suddenly remembered that although the lady in front of him was from Constellation, Arund was from Northland. Most of the time, Thales could not help but forget this, and treated her more as a typical Empire bigwig. Finally, Miranda spoke softly. If you really want a reason, Cohen told me that the prince is in a difficult situation and urgently needs help, but unfortunately, he does not have enough people around him. Or to quote his own words, they are all idiots. Cohen? Thales was stunned when he heard this. Did he ask Miranda to come? He subconsciously asked what was on his mind. How is he recently? Pretty good, Miranda said in a low voice. First, he was transferred from the Highway Administration Maintenance Department to the Archives Management Department, and his daily work changed from sweeping to drinking tea. Yes, thanks to me. Thales felt a little guilty. Maybe I should pull some strings and transfer him to Star Lake Fort as compensation? Until he tidied up the files without rest and found a lot of dubious old files, which involved a large number of retired police officers and magistrates who were enjoying their old age, and even quite a few former high-ranking officials. His superior had no choice but to transfer him to the police academy under the Academy of Knights to train reserve police officers. After a second of careful consideration, Thales decided to let Cohen continue to train in the police station. I understand. A strange feeling surged in Thales' heart. I have to say, I am very grateful and honored, but you are Madame Sonia's right-hand man and a strong fighter. If I abduct you, she will not. She will, Miranda interrupted him. Madam, she will understand. She understands better than anyone else. Miranda stared out the window. Thales paused for a second. Are you serious? You want to serve me? I don't have the habit of lying. So you are not good at lying, at least not as good as I thought. In that second, Miranda's gaze turned fierce. The Duke of Star Lake took a deep breath and felt the color in the room turn darker. You are not here because of Cohen's request. Thales straightened his posture and looked at her seriously. It's not that he doesn't want to help me, but even if that blockhead has 20 brains, he will not think of saying that the prince is in a difficult situation and needs help. Miranda's frown deepened. 7 years ago in Dragon Cloud City, you did not manage to deceive Child Vlad with this soaring eagle. The Duke of Star Lake looked at her coldly. 7 years later, you will not be able to deceive me either. So I want to ask you one more time, and it will be the last time. There was a chill in Thales' words. Madame Arund, why did you come here to help me? Miranda leaned against the window and did not say a word. She was like a winter plum flower facing the wind and snow. But Thales was also very patient. Finally, the swordswoman spoke expressionlessly. Because I am tired of it. Tired of what? Miranda raised her head suddenly. Waiting, she said coldly. I am tired of waiting for a chance to change, tired of going with the flow. I am tired of being a happy, pitiful, innocent, and pitiful woman who is content with the status quo and has no self-awareness. Just like the past 20 years. Miranda did not shy away and met the prince's eyes. Happy, pitiful, innocent, content with the status quo, these words. Thales slowly furrowed his brows. What are you talking about? Miranda let out a cold laugh. Everything. She turned her head and looked at Lake of Stars under the sunlight. 7 years ago, my father was imprisoned for the crime of harming a foreign politician, that unfortunate Prince of Extet. But everyone in the circle knew that Iron Eagle Val Arund's crimes were far more than that. He had ulterior motives, colluded with foreign enemies, and committed the shocking crime of treason. He nearly caused the people of the Northern Territory to be plunged into misery and suffering, and caused the kingdom to be doomed eternally. His debt of sin was great, and he could not be punished. Thales recalled the Hall of Stars 7 years ago. He remembered the scene of the courtiers pressuring the prince to abdicate when the flames of war were about to descend. He did not speak. Miranda's words became more oppressive. The Arund family suffered a blow, and their prestige was swept to the ground. Their reputation was ruined, and they were ridiculed countless times over the past 7 years. The forces and families who were once on good terms with Cold Castle fought to keep their distance and draw a clear line between them. She said dejectedly, the truth is, our family's name has gradually faded, and the Northern Territory no longer looks up to the White Eagle at the top of Winter Summit. Thales spoke softly, but there was a faint uneasiness in his heart. I'm very sorry. There's no need for that, Miranda denied flatly. Since we've done it, we should bear the consequences. This is what we deserve. Thales looked at her, but he remembered the Archdukes of Extet who fought against each other in heroic Spirit Palace in another country. So this is why you came to me, and even wanted to serve me. You want to borrow the Duke of Star Lake's power, and the glory of the White Eagle? Miranda nodded but then shook her head. More than that. Her gaze froze. You know what else he did? Him. For some reason, Thales understood that she was not talking about Duke Val. Miranda left the windowsill and walked slowly towards Thales. Thud. Her voice was steady, but her words were piercing. He kept my father in prison for 7 years, even though he deserved it. He did not take his life, nor did he strip him of his title and status. At the same time, he showed the king's mercy and Renaissance Palace's cruelty. Thud. He never explicitly stated that I, a female first heir, was the legitimate heir. Similarly, he did not acknowledge that the other Arund branches had the right to replace me. He allowed us to have disputes everywhere and caused dissension in the family. Thud. Asterisk the swordswoman from the Arund family's footsteps seemed to have a certain rhythm. With every step she took, her imposing manner increased, and it complemented her words. He never mentioned or approved my marriage. He even rejected the suggestions of those with ulterior motives. He made me gradually become the fruit of power in Northland. The more it was delayed, the more tempting it would be for others to pluck it. Asterisk thud. Asterisk, he also incited Zamunto and Fries and gave them small favors to boost their ambitions. He made these two families in the Northern Territory, who were second only to the Arund family, think that they could replace Cold Castle's position in front of Renaissance Palace. Asterisk thud. Asterisk Thales felt the sin of Hell's river stirring. A strong premonition forced him to take a deep breath and cut her off. The Northern Territory is geographically crucial, and the people there are fierce. When Renaissance Palace handles related matters, they naturally need to be cautious. That's right. Miranda said sharply and cut him off. The Northern Territory has a special status. There are many traditions that are different from those in the kingdom. One of them is that the suzerains of Northland do not have to follow the Elam law's system of inheritance of the eldest son. They can even follow the legacy of Northland and choose the best to inherit the legacy. Or in the words of the people in the land, they are barbaric and backward. Legacy of Northland. Thales suddenly thought of Black Sand region and how Chapman Lampard obtained the Archduke's position. But I know his plans. Miranda changed the topic, and her tone was piercingly cold. You know it too. He used the difference in inheritance laws and disputes, as well as my gender to keep me, the Arund family, and the entire Northern Territory in suspense, so that he could continue the story of Blade Edge Hill. In the name of the royal family, he would carry out his laws in the Northern Territory, spread his authority, convey his will, and appoint officials who were close to the royal family. Until the rebellious Cold Castle did as he wished and became the second northern field camp of Renaissance Palace after Broken Dragon Fortress. Miranda finally stopped in front of Thales. She said airily, until the proud white eagle at the top of Winter Summit became a parrot in a pet bird cage. Thales could not help but let out a long sigh. So now I, Miranda Arund, the daughter of a duke, have become a sacrifice for the kingdom, an abandoned child of history, and an obstacle to the Northern Territory. My status is neither high nor low, my authority is undecided, and my future is dark and uncertain. Miranda snorted coldly. As expected of a father and son. Just like you, he knows how to make use of women, especially women who are vulnerable, right? Thales' gaze shifted. She. He resisted the urge to retort, but he could not stop his mood from sinking. So, Miranda, you came here for. At that moment, Thales only felt a deep sense of sorrow. And I am just tired of it, Miranda said expressionlessly. Thales sighed. So you asked me just now if I want you to be my queen. You are looking for a way out. Miranda's expression darkened. She nodded. Yes, this is indeed the fastest and most effortless way to solve the problem. But then her gaze turned sharp. But I believe that you are not so stupid and short-sighted that you only see my value as a wife and mother. As he listened to her words, Thales remembered his brief encounter with the shackled Duke of the Northern Territory, Iron Eagle Val Arund, at the royal banquet. Please do me another favor. Don't marry her. If you have no choice but to marry her, don't plant a seed in her belly. Duke Val, you foresaw this. You knew this would happen, didn't you? You know your daughter. You know that she is an Arund. She is the White Eagle of the Northern Territory. Under the day before the bitter cold winter, she may temporarily retreat, but she will not remain mute for long, much less bow her head forever. So, what do you want? Thales asked softly. Humph, what do I want? Miranda repeated this sentence. She slowly lowered her body and met Thales' eyes. It's very simple. I am a descendant of the White Eagle Arund. What flows in my veins is the cruel blood of the first marshal under the King of Renaissance, wretched Eagle Nolaner Arund. She said in a low voice, I went back and forth between Cold Castle and Broken Dragon Fortress. I fought against the Northland barbarians for a total of 9 years. All the generals, captains, soldiers, messengers, cooks, porters, and even the prostitutes in the villages outside the fortress know me. Miranda's expression became more determined. I am also the subordinate and comrade of the fortress flower. Be it fame, ability, status, experience, or familiarity with the Northern Territory, I am the best and strongest replacement and successor for the northern barrier of the kingdom. In this second, Miranda's gaze was as sharp as a knife. In the entire kingdom, no one is more deserving of the title of the Duke of the Northern Territory than me. Her voice was as cold as ice. No one is more qualified than me to rule that ancient land. Her words were as heavy as a mountain. No one can use any reason to stop me from defending or even taking back what belongs to me. Thales did not speak. At that moment, he was in a daze, as if he had returned to the small Ballard room. To defeat them, Your Majesty, you must change your strategy. You need them to jump out, stand out, and shine. Now they jumped out. Thales' heart trembled. He slowly raised his head and met Miranda's determined expression. This day has come so quickly. At this moment, the Gertoxa was in his front pocket, as light as a feather. And I will give you unexpected great help you see through them, disintegrate them, and finally destroy them. That night, when he reached an agreement with King Kessel, Thales knew the price of doing so. Or rather, he thought he knew. He thought. Now, what do you think? As he pondered, the daughter of the Arund family stared at him. Polaris. Chapter 648. Thales was silent for a long time. A myriad of thoughts ran through his mind. Some of them were memories of his adventures with Miranda in Dragon Cloud City, and some were related to the Covenant bone ring. In the end, he sighed and turned away from Miranda's burning gaze. He stepped over the chair that had died of old age and sat on the desk. If Grandmother Valencia was here, she would probably reprimand the Duke for his indecent behavior with a straight face. But she was not here. Fortunately, she was not here. So, Madame Arund, you came to me for title, land, and power. Thales sat on the desk and stroked the scar on his left palm in a daze. Miranda did not move. She only watched the Duke of Star Lake from afar, who was immersed in his own thoughts. I have to say, this is really impressive. Thales made up his mind. He took a deep breath, but unfortunately, forgive me for refusing. Strange, Miranda interrupted him. Thales frowned and looked up. The daughter of the Arund family spoke softly. Isn't it only natural for the heir of a duke's family to work hard for the sake of titles, land, and power? Thales could not help but frown and look up. Miranda shook her head and said, Then why did you say it was impressive when it came to me? As if this is something rare, something worth writing about? Thales was stunned and did not react. What? No, I didn't think that way. Miranda sneered. If I were a male heir, would you still say, as the son of a duke, you actually want title, land, and power? Wow, that's really impressive. Thales was even more stunned. But Miranda took a step forward and said aggressively, Why? Is it that I or someone like me is not worthy, not suitable or unable? Or is it that I don't have the ambition to fight for power, and shouldn't be so impressive, Duke Thales? What? Thales, who was a little dumbfounded by her rebuke, took a deep breath. Please don't misunderstand, Madame Arund. I mean no harm. The young man tried to ease the conversation. I don't mean to look down on you. It's just a polite remark. This time, Miranda stared at him for a long time, as if she wanted to dig out the thoughts behind his eyes. It was only when Thales felt embarrassed and could not help but cough to remind her that she averted her gaze. I know. Miranda's voice dropped, no longer aggressive. I know you mean no harm, Your Highness. Through the feedback from Hell's senses, Thales vaguely felt that at that moment, she was a little gloomy and depressed. At most, you'll feel nothing. You'll just be used to it. You won't feel anything strange. You'll only think that it's a normal sentence. You'll even think that I'm being too sensitive. Miranda gazed at the Star Lake, which had become languid and numb from the warm summer breeze, and the waves that were unable to calm down. But this is the problem. The cold light in her eyes slowly froze. This is why I had to come here. The moment he finished speaking, Thales looked confused. But for some reason, when he looked at Miranda's profile, he felt that the study was eerily quiet. Madame Arund, I really didn't. Thales wanted to explain more, but he paused and changed his words. I'm very sorry, madam. If I said something wrong or expressed the wrong attitude in a way that I didn't realize, then I apologize to you. Really? Miranda was silent like a statue for a long time before she slowly turned her head around. She curled the corners of her lips at Thales and smiled faintly. That smile was very natural and bright. Even the sunlight behind her could not cover it. This made Thales a little dazed. She's beautiful, isn't she? A voice in his heart reminded him softly. That smile is like the first sprout on the peak of a snow-capped mountain when the snow melts in early spring. But such a feeling disappeared in a flash. Just like that smile, fragile and fragile. To be fair, you shouldn't be the one to apologize. The swordswoman became expressionless again, as if she had never smiled before. This brought Thales back to reality. But it's also fair to say that I accept your apology. Thales was stunned again. The Duke snapped out of his daze. He quickly coughed and changed the topic. So, madam, do you want to join me and tour the south with me? Let everyone see that you've chosen your side and stand under the Duke of Star Lake, the future king, so that you can accumulate experience and fame to invest in your future? Miranda thought for a while and crossed her arms. No, not to join you. She raised her index finger gently and pointed at Thales. But to help you. Thales frowned. As your supporter. Miranda's eyes sparkled. Not as a follower. Not as a follower, but as a help. Not as a follower, but as a supporter. As he mulled over her words, Thales also crossed his arms with a serious expression. A few seconds later, he took a deep breath. Dear Madame Arund. Thales' voice was a little hoarse. You know, after Dragon Cloud City, although I haven't contacted you much. It's not that you haven't contacted me much, it's that you haven't contacted me at all, Miranda suddenly said. Thales was instantly rendered speechless. Miranda sneered. In comparison, I have at least met Wuxia a few times over the past 7 years. Yes, that Wuxia. Although I don't know how many Wuxias there are here, or if everyone is a Wuxia. If only Mother Valencia was here. Pay attention to your etiquette, child. When the Duke speaks, shut up. She would definitely say that. She waved the pointer in her hand. All right. Thales suppressed his displeasure at being interrupted and continued. This may sound hypocritical, but madam, I cherish the experience of that night in Dragon's Blood very much. I have always treated you as an old friend, a comrade who has gone through thick and thin with me. Miranda nodded slightly. It is indeed hypocritical. Thales sighed. He thought that this girl should have a good chat with Mallows. So I don't want to lie. What you said just now, madam, is not a good idea for now. Miranda's gaze changed. What's not a good idea? She chuckled and said, marry you? Or join you? Or fight for what I deserve? Neither. Thales suddenly raised his voice, causing Miranda to frown. You said you want to go south with me, but... The Duke exhaled, pinched the bone ring in his pocket, and sighed. You don't understand. You think that I have your answer here, that you can win back the Northern Territory here, that I can help you get back what your family lost, but you... Thales' words died in his throat. But you are wrong. In his heart, a voice slowly uttered what he wanted to say but did not say. You will only fall into a sinister trap carefully laid out by the king and personally created by me. You will become a self-righteous but helpless chess piece, falling deeper and deeper until you become the next sacrifice. Just like your father. Just like me. Thales closed his eyes. With Gertoxa as my witness. You will help me push the kingdom forward. Remove the obstacles, break the shackles, at all costs. He could not refuse the king. But he did not want to hurt her. They were once friends. Even if this was just a lie to himself. Your Highness. Miranda asked, puzzled, what do you want to say? Thales snapped out of his daze. Sorry. He opened his eyes, and his thoughts became clear again. In fact, my lady, I met your father not long ago. As expected, Miranda's expression changed slightly at that moment. Thales tried his best to make his voice sound more sincere. Lord Val asked me for a favor. He did not wish for you to be too involved in the matters between me and the royal family. Miranda was silent for a long time. But when she spoke again, her words were full of disdain. My father, right? So you obediently listened to him, did whatever he said, and became a puppet outside prison for a traitorous prisoner, an obedient pawn? She looked at Thales provocatively as if she had seen through everything. He forbade you to F***ck me, so you don't dare to F***ck me? You can only lock your own chastity belt, and you don't even dare to go to the toilet? F***ck Thale's heart froze. How was he supposed to respond to that? Didn't she teach you anything good after being under the fortress flower for so long? In comparison, Raphael and Cohen, who are both from the Tower of Eradication, are so much cuter. The Duke had no choice but to take a deep breath and reorganize the logic of persuasion. What I mean is, you, Miranda Arund, are the eldest daughter of the Guardian Duke of the Northern Territory, the heir to Cold Castle. You have an extraordinary status, and are of great importance. You will implicate all parties. On the night of Dragon's Blood 7 years ago, we carelessly neglected this point, and learned our lesson in blood. Miranda frowned. So, whether you can serve under me or not is not something that Sonia and I can decide. And my father, His Majesty, he is a complete bastard, Miranda interrupted him again. But this time. Huh? Thales was stunned when he heard that, and then he was shocked. What? Who's the bastard? Miranda sneered, and her words were unscrupulous. Isn't that so? As a father, he used you as a bargaining chip to swindle others, a breeding pig for mating. For this reason, he could disregard your wishes and ignore your safety. He could pick up your little dick and show it off to the whole kingdom, as long as it could bring him the slightest benefit, whether it was 7 years ago or 7 years later. She picked up the greeting letter and slammed it on the table. Oh, sunset. Thales took a deep breath. If Mother Valencia is here. No, thank goodness she's not. Thales could only keep a straight face and say nothing, regardless of his status or position. And no matter how badly you get beaten up, you can only say good things about him. A father's love is like a mountain, there will be sweets after the beating, Miranda mocked. Thales took a deep breath. Damn it. He thought that he was the most daring person in the kingdom to scold the Iron Hand King. In the end, for the sake of the past, I'll pretend that I didn't hear this. Thales spoke in a low voice, without looking at her. And you, Madame Arund, perhaps you should know your place, and show due respect to His Majesty. Miranda shook her head and snorted. She glanced sideways at Thales, as if she was looking at the most impossible thing. What about you as the king's son, Thales Jadestar? Why didn't you know your place, and show due respect? Thales was stunned. On the contrary, you were unscrupulous, impulsive, reckless, trespassing the Forbidden Palace, leading the rebellion, threatening the king with death, and forcing him to compromise. Why? Just for the so-called justice of a mere Western Desert squire? At that moment, Thales raised his head abruptly. But Miranda did not dodge. She stared back at Thales, as if she was the one in charge of the conversation. Leading the rebellion, threatening the king with death, Western Desert squire. All right, maybe the news from that day can't be suppressed, but the details. Madame Arund, the Duke said with a frown and a warning tone, rumors are not to be trusted. The sound of the guards changing shifts came from outside the window. Your Highness, Miranda's eyes were as sharp as knives, and she said tit for tat. It's not enough to deceive yourself. At that moment, the air in the study seemed to have frozen. One of them was sitting, and the other was standing. One of them had a gloomy expression, and her attitude was cold, while the other's gaze was sharp, and she pressed forward. But just when the situation was extremely tense, Thales' gaze shifted. Cohen Caribbean. He stared at Miranda. Did that guy tell you these things? Hearing this name, Miranda hesitated for a moment, then she snorted and shook her head. Don't worry, Cohen fulfilled his promise and kept his mouth shut. He denied everything that he should deny. Thales was stunned at first, then he understood and sighed. In other words, his denial is equivalent to admitting to everything that he should not have admitted to? Yes, something along the lines of, I didn't lend my sword to the prince, nor did I follow him into Renaissance Palace, and I'm not stupid enough to rebel, let alone see some brat threaten his father with suicide, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the previous royal banquet. So, Miranda, do you understand? As for the rest, with Miranda's brain, it was not a problem to deduce the truth. Miranda was silent for a while, as if she wanted to defend her friend, but in the end, she understood that it was useless. She could only sigh. We all know him. Thales could only sigh softly. The next time we meet, I want to beat him up. The Duke said helplessly. Then you have to queue up. Miranda pursed her lips. When she said this, Thales and Miranda could not help but look at each other and smile. It seemed that this was one of the few areas where they could find common ground. But this also made Thales sigh in his heart. His desperate gamble in Renaissance Palace had a far greater impact than he imagined. No, if that's the case, I can't bring Miranda along when I'm in danger. Together? Thales raised his head and became serious. You chose to join my team and pledge your loyalty to me, or as you said, to help me and support me. But do you know the price of doing so? Miranda chuckled softly. Of course. The daughter of the Arund family spread her hands and looked around. It's the same treatment you received after you were exiled by the king. Thales closed his eyes gently. No, you don't know, girl. You're far from it. Whether you succeed or fail, if you're not careful and make the slightest mistake, you may be overturned by the warhorse and abandoned by the carriage. Not only will you never be able to be crowned, you will also be surrounded by enemies everywhere you look. Even your life will be in danger. Thales tried hard to shake off King Kessel's words and tried again. I understand your current predicament and indignation, and I'm honored that you chose me as your answer. But please believe me, it's not that I don't want to help you, it's just that you have a better way out than Star Lake Castle. But Miranda shook her head. I used to think that Broken Dragon Fortress was the way out. My best role model is there, isn't it? As long as I stay by Officer Sonia's side, learn her military strategy, inherit her reputation, shoulder her responsibilities, prove to the kingdom that I have the ability to wield the sword, prove that I am indispensable to ruling the Northern Territory, I can. But I was wrong. Miranda lowered her head and looked at the letter stamped with a 9-pointed star seal. She smiled sarcastically. Officer Sonia can teach me everything on the battlefield, but there are always some things that she can't teach me. She raised her head again and stared at the silent Thales. There are more things that I can't get on that battlefield. Thales looked at her with a complicated gaze. He could sense her determination at that moment. But the more determined she was, the more he felt that those who are deceived by you and support you will gather into a rolling wave. They will use their reputation, stance, camp, interests, connections, situation, and everything else to force you to move forward. You will not be allowed to defend yourself, you will not be able to control them, and you will not be allowed to go back on your word. The two of them sank into a long silence. Then, Thales took a deep breath and broke the silence. I met Raphael in the Secret Intelligence Department not long ago. Miranda trembled a little. Although he doesn't admit it, he cares about you a lot. Can't even take a joke. When he thought of this, Thales could not help but smile. But this smile was very pale. It was just like Miranda's expression. Don't be like this, Your Highness, the swordswoman said slowly, but there was a hint of danger in her words. First it was my father, then it was that man. With our status, we should not play this kind of amateurish and sensational game. But Thales ignored her. If Raphael were to see you right now, to see you bargaining with me, saying all sorts of things. As a member of the Secret Intelligence Department and a tool loyal to Renaissance Palace, what would he think? Most importantly, what would he do when he finds out? Thales stared straight at her. Miranda also stared at him quietly. Her gaze was frozen, and she sank into deep thought. But when she spoke again, she became the calm, indifferent, and aloof swordswoman. Thales Jadestar. I realize that you are not as cute as you were when you were young. Miranda stared at him coldly. So impulsive, so risky, so silly, so simple and direct. Thales frowned. He had a feeling that his persuasion had failed again. All right. At least I was cute. But there is one thing about you that has not changed, just like the others. In the next moment, Miranda's gaze turned cold. When will you see me as an independent and complete person? Thales, who was sighing, was stunned when he heard this. And not as someone's daughter, someone's friend, someone's lover, someone's wife, or someone's future mother? Thales stared at her blankly. A complete person. If you can't even do this, Your Highness, why don't you just keep the most utilitarian and callous part of you? Miranda snorted coldly. See me only as a tool, a sword, and a chess piece. When he heard this, Thales trembled slightly. These words are so familiar. Let me do it, Your Majesty. Let me be your enemy, your spy, your chess piece, your bargaining chip, your sword. Utilitarian. Callous. At least that will make both of us feel better, Miranda finished her words coldly. Instead of putting on a hypocritical show of, I see you as a friend. And, for your own good. For your own good. Thales clenched his teeth. She was very determined. The voice in his heart rose. She won't give up. In other words, she asked for it, and it has nothing to do with anyone else, right? Thales subconsciously clenched his fists, his fingertips touching the scar on his palm. And you have to do this. Like she said, keep the most utilitarian and callous part. The voice in his heart reminded him, compared to your pitiful friendship with her, think about King Kessel, think about the covenant you made with him. Think about the path you want to take. Think about what kind of chaotic future constellation will usher in if you don't intervene and let the Iron Hand King do whatever he wants. Conflict, contradiction, war. How much will it cost? How much blood? How many families will be destroyed? And she's right. She will become a good sword, a good chess piece. In the next second, Thales suddenly opened his eyes. Very good. The look in his eyes was cold and dark. The sin of hell's river flowed faster in his veins. Miranda Arund, if you have thought through everything and are determined to serve me loyally, of course, I will welcome you with open arms. Hearing that, Miranda slowly raised her head. Her gaze was as sharp as a sword. Thales' tone changed, as if winter had suddenly arrived. But you have to know, you are not the first person to come to me. The Duke of Star Lake's visitor list for the past few months is so thick that it can be used as toilet paper. With me, you can lock onto your enemy. The flag of the anti-king flies high, and anyone who gathers under it will fall into the trap and be caught in one fell swoop. Thales' expression was cold, and his words were callous. If I take you in, accept you, allow you to join the Duke of Star Lake's team, allow you to share the halo and glory of the prince's vassal. The Duke narrowed his eyes and sized up the swordswoman in front of him. Then what benefits can I get? I will give you unexpected help you see through them, disintegrate them, and finally destroy them. Thales forced himself to laugh coldly and said in an unfamiliar tone, as you said, apart from the value of being a wife and mother, or what you asked for, a more utilitarian one is to satisfy lust and reproduce, and a more callous one is to be a body and womb. The prince's words were frivolous and presumptuous. Miranda subconsciously clenched her fists. Thales bent down on the study table and rested his elbows on his knees. He felt the coldness that made him extremely uncomfortable, and the corners of his lips curled up. What else can you give me? A dark cloud floated across the sky and blocked the sun. The ripples on the Star Lake dimmed, leaving behind only a deep darkness. Miranda's expression became solemn. So, this is a deal? Thales crooked his finger. I took your suggestion and only kept the most utilitarian part. With a heart full of discomfort, he brazenly sized up Miranda. Does this make you feel better, my dear Mira? Mira. Miranda tensed up. This is clearly a nickname that is intimate, but it sounds... Even Cohen does not dare to call me that, she said coldly. Thales snorted, and his gaze immediately turned cold. So, I am not Cohen, but your master. If you want to stay, you better get used to it as soon as possible, Lady Mira. Miranda stared at Thales and furrowed her brows tightly. She was silent for a long time. And Thales was also happy with the peace and quiet. He did not rush her. A few seconds later, Miranda unclenched her fists and smiled unexpectedly. Very good, I like deals. The swordswoman licked her chapped lips, as if she was licking the blood of her prey. It makes everything direct, simple, naked, and bloody. Thales was stunned at first, but then he smiled as well. You know, I was thinking that if Raphael knew about our conversation right now, Thales shook his head and said sarcastically, he would definitely kill me. Then he or anyone else would have to step over my long sword first. Miranda said coldly. Or a corpse. The two people in the study looked at each other, as if they were swords clashing. This is the first benefit that my loyalty has brought you, Your Excellency. Thales looked at her expression and was silent for a moment. Yes, your martial art skills are not bad. The Duke saw her raise her eyebrows and could not help but change his words. In fact, they are quite good. But he immediately sneered in disdain. But do not forget, the Star Lake Guards are elites carefully selected from the Royal Guards. Most of them have the title of Royal Knights, and they are all heroes. Thales spoke as usual. His face was not red, and he was not out of breath. I do not lack elites under my command. There are people in Star Lake Castle who are on par with you, or even better than you. Somewhere in the castle, a guard captain sneezed violently. "This damn cat fur." Miranda did not answer, but her expression was solemn. Thales straightened his back and sneered. "And they can go through fire and water for me without hesitation. Even if they want to rebel, they will not even bat an eyelid." Miranda swallowed hard. Thales stared at his opponent, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. "My dear Mira, if you want to participate in the game, you have to pay more." More. Chapter 649. Miranda was silent for a long time, but her gaze never left the Duke of Star Lake, as though she was still getting used to Thales's behavior. "You said that you have no lack of elites under your command, and that you're even better than me?" A few seconds later Miranda said disdainfully, "But as far as I know, that duel of 2 against 1. Those were the weakest 2 in the Star Lake Guards." Thales interrupted her firmly to prevent her from digging up his past. At the same time, he felt sorry for Ness and Bastia. "Others aside, my personal guard captain, Lord Tormund Mallows, also known as the Sharp Blade of Terror, can suppress both of them with one hand." Achoo, there's more and more cat hair. Only an idiot would come up with this idea of raising a cat and limiting a mouse. Mallows, who was inspecting the supplies, said unhappily. In the study, Thales sneezed softly and rubbed his nose. "Terror, Sharp Blade?" Miranda repeated the word, a puzzled look on her face. Thales' expression was solemn. "That is Lord Mallows' nickname. All the Northlanders, no, all the Constellatiates. What I mean is, all the enemies who have suffered losses in his hands, whether it is the Extensions or the Constellatiates, call him that behind his back." Miranda furrowed her brows. Thales sneered. "A hint. Don't mention it to his face. Mallows doesn't like this nickname. He'd rather die than admit it." Miranda thought about something, her expression gradually turning solemn. The Mallows family was once part of the 7 Jade Star attendants, nicknamed Razor. "I know that. But Sharp Blade of Terror? In that case, Lord Mallows is skilled in swords and sabers? Or short-range daggers?" Thales had to cough more frequently. "Well, why don't you spar with him some other day? But let me warn you in advance, as my most trusted guard captain, Lord Mallows' martial arts skills are unfathomable. Even the most powerful and terrifying powerhouse in the world would only have a 50-50 chance of winning if they were to go against him." "Why do I feel like you're exaggerating?" "No, I'm just emphasizing that the martial arts skills you're so proud of are not rare here." Hearing this, Miranda was silent for a while, but she quickly continued. "Not just martial arts. Considering the discord between you and Duke Zayn, Your Highness, no matter what your purpose in going to Jade City is, you will definitely be hindered in all aspects. It will not be as smooth as going to the capital or Dragon Cloud City." Thales remained silent. Actually, things did not go very smoothly in the capital and Dragon Cloud City either. But she was right. His goal in going to Jadeite City was not only dangerous, but it was also very tricky. He needed more capable people. "And we worked together in Dragon Cloud City. You know what I'm capable of other than using a sword." Miranda's gaze became shrewd. "There are some difficult problems that can be solved by me. It will be more reliable and effective than handing them to Wuxia, Mute, the boy from the Doyle family, or that big man with a zombie face. Wuxia and Ralph. Doyle and Glover." Thales recalled the encounter at Red Street Market and Laurel Club that day. He could not help but frown. "Accept me, and you will receive my identity and surname." Miranda saw a slight change in Thales' expression, and she continued to increase the stakes. "Your Highness, although you are the heir to the supreme throne, ever since the royal banquet and the prince's accident of breaking into the palace, you have affected the interests of many people. You are in a whirlpool, and you will be blamed at every turn. You have also drifted further and further away from Renaissance Palace. So far, there has not been a suzerain who has enough power to stand out and declare their allegiance to you, to support you, and to endorse the rights you deserve." Thales thought about it. "Perhaps you do not know, but my sword is the ancient sword passed down in the family of the Duke of Western Desert. Cohen's cousin, Count Derek Chroma of Wing Fort, escorted me all the way back to the capital. And the legal heir to the Count of Brave Souls Fort, Paul Bosdorf of the Black Lion family, is outside right now, on guard duty for me." The Duke of Star Lake shrugged nonchalantly. "And their family even gave me an extra-large 9-pointed star flag." The workmanship is exquisite, and the materials are great. When it flutters, it shines with silver light. It's very awe-inspiring. I like it very much. Miranda thought for a while and quickly found the corresponding memory. Paul Bosdorf? You mean the guy who was beaten up with a broom on his first day in the capital? It's not as serious as a pig's head. It's just a scratch. Wait, how did you know? Miranda sneered. But unfortunately, Paul's father, Count Louis, is still in his prime. He is not in prison, nor has he lost all of his authority. He cannot leave behind a huge power vacuum so that his heir can become the hottest future count who is closest to the throne. That's easy. I'll just kill his father later. Thales's expression did not change, and his heart did not beat so violently. Miranda ignored his terrible sense of humor and said in a serious tone, "As for a sword and an escort, only a fool would think that this is an unbreakable and sincere alliance." Thales pursed his lips. Miranda's gaze turned sharp. But unlike other families, Arund is in a special situation. The Duke of the Northern Territory is in prison and has no hope of returning. The throne is empty, and my status as his only daughter and first heir is especially crucial. She took a step forward. Having me in your camp is equivalent to having the entire Northern Territory in the future and the Arund family, the head of the 6 great clans. This is an unprecedentedly obvious signal, and it is also an important bargaining chip for you to gather your people in power again after you were exiled by the king out of jealousy. Make a comeback? You make it sound like I've ever made a comeback. Thales fell into deep thought. Based on this alone, my value to you is greater than everyone in this castle. And I have yet to mention the reputation and experience I have accumulated in Broken Dragon Fortress over the years. Thales was silent for a while. I admit that what you said is not without reason. The Duke of Star Lake curled his lips and shook his head. But there are quite a few flaws. For example, you may not be able to inherit your father's position. Miranda's expression tensed. Thales smiled. A long time ago, there was a little lowly. The old witch was the same. We agreed that she would help me ascend to the throne, and I would help her regain her power. Thales said with a nostalgic expression. But the cooperation broke down. She betrayed me. Miranda's gaze shifted. For many years, I resented her for breaking her promise, but it was only after I discussed it with old Wu, with my teacher, that I understood that the cooperation was destined to fail. Miranda sensed the coldness in Thales's words, and she could not help but shudder. Thales sneered and placed his hands on the desk. You see, I have to ascend to the throne first before I have the strength to help her regain her power, but she has to regain her power first before she has the strength to help me ascend to the throne. The prince's gaze turned cold. With this, aren't we just 2 empty promises that act as guarantees for each other? It all depends on which side can't hold themselves back first, and whose credibility goes bankrupt first. Miranda tensed up. At that moment, the prince's gaze seemed to be sharp, and it made the Pegasus music in her body start to circulate. Martial arts, brains, and your so-called illusory status, I do not lack any of them. Thales exhaled and narrowed his eyes. If you want to convince me to accept you, you need to have a greater bargaining chip. Miranda did not say anything. The back-and-forth negotiations made her frown. And if you don't, then give up. Give up. Thales stared at her, but he clenched his fists tightly on the desk. Miranda, please. Star Lake Castle does not keep idle people, or are you willing to offer yourself as my pillow and warm my bed? Thales' tone was frivolous and exaggerated, full of sarcasm and disdain. Miranda did not say a word, but she clenched her fists tightly. Please, stay away from me. Thales looked at her quietly, and there was still a cold smile on his face. Stay away from Star Lake Castle. Stay away from this quagmire, this whirlpool, and this trap. At least, I can avoid the eye of the storm in the future and protect myself. I can avoid becoming a victim of the alliance. Please. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the study room was very dark. Under Thales's urging and interrogating gaze, the swordswoman's gaze moved slightly, and she seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, she raised her head, and there seemed to be a resolute look on her face. Northern Territory, Miranda said firmly. If you help me return to Cold Castle in a justifiable manner and ascend to the position of Duke, Brat, I promise that I will bring you Northern Territory. Northern Territory? Thales did not have the time to fuss over the way the man addressed him. He was first stunned. Then he laughed involuntarily. What are you talking about? The northern region is the kingdom's territory. But Miranda shook her head firmly. You don't understand. The Arund family's hawk had a sharp gaze. I promise, I will bring you a different northern region. Not geographically, not traditionally, not now and not in the past. It's the future that your father has been dreaming of for many years, the northern territory of the kingdom. Thales' gaze shifted. He subconsciously withdrew his arm and straightened his body. What? Miranda took a step forward and said firmly, I promise that it will no longer be a special case in the north that is outside of the kingdom system. From inheritance to jurisprudence, from land to population, from culture to system, from finance to management, from agriculture to defense, from conscription to tariff, from personnel to logistics, from pine forest to desolate land, from bitter cold temple to Neverwinter palace, from birch forest to broken dragon fortress, Renaissance Palace will rule over the northern region like an extension of its arm, just like how it ruled over the central territory. It was as easy as moving an arm. Never going back on his word. Thales' gaze changed completely. The prince looked at Miranda in disbelief. My lady, what are you talking about? Miranda snorted coldly and did not hesitate. That's right. There will be no outdated traditions, no annoying customs, no old-fashioned families, no annoying suzerains, and no awkward compromises. The Northern Territory, the kingdom's best source of soldiers and bridgehead, will be completely and utterly integrated into Constellation's system and governance, just as your father had hoped. Miranda gritted her teeth. There will be no echoes under the royal authority. Completely and utterly. Completely integrated. Thales could no longer sit still. He jumped off the desk and did not even bother to maintain his previous cold and utilitarian demeanor. Let me clarify. You said that after you become a duke, you will not only give up the Northern Territory, but also the power in your hands. Thales gulped with difficulty and asked. Even if it means that the Northern Territory will no longer be the territory it used to be, the suzerains will no longer have their former rule, and the dukes will no longer have their former status? How can it be? Miranda looked at him silently. A few seconds later, she curled up the corners of her lips and revealed a confident but cold smile. She tilted her head upwards as if she was provoking him. Yes, brat. Why? Thales' expression was still shocked. I don't understand. Why do you? You said it yourself. It's better to have no empty promises. Miranda exhaled and chuckled. As long as I am not the Duke of the Northern Territory, or more accurately, a duchess, then the power that this title represents, regardless of whether it is big or small, near or far, is meaningless to me. Miranda's smile turned cold. If that is the case, I can only offer a greater bargaining chip. For example, the future tax revenue that the virtuous king promised when he borrowed money, or the recently popular term from Camus Union, options. The swordswoman from the Arund family raised her head. Her aura was imposing. What do you say, Your Highness? Be it Falkenhaz, Chroma, or Bosdorf, will they be willing to give you such a bargaining chip, the future? Thales blinked furiously. If what you said is true, if you really want to be in the future. Thales was in disbelief. That will be an unprecedented loss for you, no, for the Arund family, to your vassals, to the historical legal system, to the dignity of the Northern Territory, and even to yourself. Betrayal? Miranda dug her ears. She did not care. Why, is it as serious as my father's treason? Thales was instantly speechless. But at that moment, he remembered what he had said in front of the king. If people know that I am the king's spy, I will be regarded as a traitor to the noble camp by thousands of vassals. I will be condemned by all and despised by all. Thales stared at Miranda in a daze. It was as if he was looking at another version of himself. But why can she be so carefree, so unruly, so nonchalant? This is obviously... But he immediately thought of something, and his expression darkened. No, this is still an empty promise. It is something that you can only do after you become a duke. He forced himself to shake his head and refuse. It is based on your empty promises, but no one else dares to give it, even if it is just verbal promises. Miranda interrupted him in an unquestionable manner. And this is not something that I can only achieve after I become a duke. In fact, your father has already begun to do it. Thales stared at her and realized that he could not understand the thoughts of the person before him. So, do you dare to accept it? Miranda's eyes were like two long swords that pinned him to the point that he could not move. Or should I say, Thales Jade Star, are you qualified to accept it? Thales' breathing quickened. He had to use the sin of Hell's river to help him calm down. As the power of eradication surged, Hell's senses allowed him to detect the power in her body more clearly. The Pegasus music flowed endlessly, and it was flawless. But why? I don't understand, Thales said subconsciously. After I returned to the country, many people from Falkenhaus to Bosdorf came to my vassals and expressed their goodwill to me. But I know that they came because they did not want to give up their former lifestyle, did not want to let go of the power they were used to, and did not want to bow down to my father's iron fist. But you. I am not them. Miranda answered his question softly. Arund's soaring eagle was once a priceless ancient sword of the Empire, but it was broken many times and recast a few times. It no longer has its former glory, and even lost its old name. She looked at her saber. Just as history moves forward and times develop, there will always be people who will grow old. Thales stared at the long sword that had experienced dragon's blood with him 7 years ago. The swordswoman stood in front of him. She was as cold as ever, but also extremely hot. But there will always be people who are young. Just like soaring eagle after it was recast, the newer the shape, the sharper the blade. There was a moment of silence between the two of them. Thales exhaled and tried to organize his thoughts. But I still can't believe that, Madame Arund. Are you really so noble and unquestionable integrity? You've paid such a huge price, and you really don't want anything, just for that empty title? For that suzerain who has no real power and is no different from a rich man, the guardian duke of the Northern Territory? It's the Duchess, Miranda corrected him. Thales sighed and nodded in agreement. The Duchess. He continued asking. But if you succeed, you will become a duchess in name only. Even when you cultivate and collect taxes on your own land, you have to submit to me. What's the point of that? She's a member of the Arund family, isn't she? They are the descendants of mournful eagled Enolaner, the oldest and most conservative family in Constellation. The voice in Thales' heart was also asking, so how is it possible? How can she give up the power that has been passed down since the age of the Empire, the power that her ancestors were born with? How can she surpass the greatest limitation and weakness of all the kings and vassals in this era? Unless. Miranda was silent for a long time before she suddenly smiled. She walked slowly to the window and looked at the vast lake of stars under the dark clouds. Tell me, Your Highness, have you ever felt this way? From that moment on, everything in your life seems to have stopped. Thales trembled slightly. The swordswoman said faintly, everything you see and feel has been set. Everything you do is fate. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, you can't break through the limitations in front of you. You can't bring anything new, and you can't see a new way out. Miranda looked out of the window, lost in thought, at the cloudy sky and the dark bottomless lake of stars. Miranda subconsciously gritted her teeth. I was able to stand here because enough people died during the bloody year, and because I was purely lucky. Thales listened to these words quietly, but his thoughts seemed to have traveled through time to see the Jade Star family tomb in Renaissance Palace, and the stone jars and jars. The room became quiet. After a long period of silence, Thales continued her sentence. There was also a deep sense of disappointment in his words. And no matter how you overcome the obstacles, you are trapped in it, unable to free yourself? Miranda turned her head and glanced at him. She seemed a little surprised. But she nodded slowly. Teacher Chartier from the Tower of Eradication said that this is probably the feeling of the heart of the sword, reaching a bottleneck, and being unable to move forward. It's not that the world has stopped, or that life has become worse. In fact, the world has always been like this, and so has life. It's that your experiences have changed, your realm has increased, your horizons have been broadened, and you have seen more, broader, higher, and more complicated things. Miranda's gaze was absent-minded. It's just that some people encounter it early, and some people encounter it late. Some people are very lucky, but also very unlucky. They never encounter it, or when they encounter it, they choose to turn a blind eye to it. Thales sighed. The heart of the sword. I heard Cohen say something similar. The Tower of Eradication's theory? Speaking of their mutual friend, Miranda chuckled and shook her head. So I want to see, I want to try, I want to take a step forward, and see if the world is really as she said. Thales was puzzled. Who? Miranda smiled, but did not answer. But she turned around and faced her back against the shadows outside the window. I'm not Cohen, who can only hug a torch tightly in the wind and snow, shivering and sniveling, while muddle-headedly repeating everything he doesn't know is meaningful. I'm also not Raphael, who deliberately ignores the doubts in his heart, who convinces himself and brainwashes himself, who believes when the heavens are about to bestow a great responsibility, they will first F***CKU, and who sees suffering and asceticism as a way out. Thales frowned when he heard that. In the face of the day before the bitter cold winter, I'm not stupid enough to face the wind and snow head-on, but I'm also unwilling to become a slave of frost. Miranda narrowed her eyes. The sorrow in her eyes faded and was replaced by determination again. I will find my own way out. This is me, this is me, this is the King Miranda Arund. The swordswoman looked at the Duke of Star Lake with determination, and the latter could not help but respond with a straight face. This is the meaning of this. I am my own master, the Sword of Neverwinter of Broken Dragon Fortress. In the next second, Miranda reached for the saber leaning against the windowsill, and hung it on her belt again. Eagle Soaring Fortress. Miranda's voice was cold, and her eyes were spirited. Northern Territory. Neverwinter. Chapter 650. She's different. Thales stared at Miranda in a daze, and could not help but think so. Thales had known Miranda for a long time, ever since they met as cellmates in Dragoncloud City, and witnessed her fighting with her sword in Heroic Spirit Palace. Without a doubt, the woman in front of him was a calm warrior, a powerful swordsman, a strong fighter, cautious and reliable, and a little aloof. Like a flower on the precipice of a snowy mountain. As expected of the White Eagle's descendant, Arund's blood descendant. But at this moment, Thales stared at her back. For the first time, he felt the heat and vitality emanating from her veins, as well as an unprecedented sense of oppression. That was not something the Arund family of Cold Castle, nor the Tower of Eradication, or even the Fortress Flower could teach her. It was. Thales closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and returned to reality. If that's the case, why don't you go straight to my father, to His Majesty, and make the same promise to him? Miranda's hand, which was adjusting the sheath rings, froze. Thales slowly opened his eyes. As long as you repeat what you told me to King Kessel, as long as you are willing to give up what your father and his generation did not want to give up. The Duke of Star Lake gritted his teeth. I believe, be it title or status, whatever I can give you in the future, the Iron Hand King can give it to you now. And he would be happy to give it to you. Thales picked up the ridiculous greeting letter, and his gaze was threatening. So why not? Miranda did not speak. She began to adjust her belt and sheath rings again. Because you are the one who broke into the palace and rebelled. Thales' expression changed. Cohen has always been slow, but the teachers in the tower said that as stupid and stubborn as he is, he has an extraordinary swordsman's intuition. Miranda did not look up. She carefully adjusted the tightness of the sword belt and the height and angle of the hilt. And that idiot said that the reason he was willing to risk his life to break into the Forbidden Palace with you was because he saw your eyes in Lower City District that day. Thales was stunned. What? What eyes? Miranda chuckled. He said he believed in you. He believed that you were like Paladin Don Quixote, charging towards an impossible goal. Thales was stunned. Don what? Miranda adjusted her sword belt and shrugged nonchalantly. I don't know. I've never heard of this knight. But when Cohen said this, he had stayed up all night and was dozing off while flipping through the files. He probably got confused with the name in one of the files. At that moment, Thales' expression froze. But Cohen said that he believed that what you wanted to do at that time was more correct and more important than being loyal to the Emperor. So, even if you wanted to barge into Renaissance Palace, although he was hesitant, he did not reject it. Just like Dragoncloud City all those years ago. Thales trembled slightly. Miranda raised her head and looked straight into his eyes. That's why I know that even after 7 years, you're still different from your father. You don't approve of the king's methods, be it forcing my father to rebel, setting up a shocking plot in Dragoncloud City that is stained with blood, or the ominous conflict at the border in Western Desert a few months ago, or other filthy things I don't know about. The swordswoman stared at Thales seriously. You, Thales Jadestar, you want to be different. At that moment, Thales felt his heart skip a beat. Different? Double quotes. Thales, become a king. Because I believe that you will be better than them and the other kings. You can prove that even in the shackles of power, there is a different way of living. Thales looked at Miranda in front of him and subconsciously clenched his fists. Damn you, quick rope. You bastard. Different way of living? That's easy for you to say. Thales took a deep breath. He tried. He tried hard. He tried to abandon his emotions and weakness. He only saw Miranda as an ambitious vassal after an ordinary noble. He thought that he could pull her into a trap without being blamed. But now the current Miranda. At that time, no matter how noble Jadestar is, he will not be able to save you. Constellation is too big for you. Even the king will not be able to protect you. Thales' gaze was bitter. His original determination wavered a little at that moment. The Duke had no choice but to take a deep breath to calm his agitation. Do you think that I can finally bring you what you want? No, you can't. Unexpectedly, Miranda shook her head. This is a battle that belongs to me alone. You are at most a stepping stone. Stepping stone, humph. Thales nodded sarcastically. You really know how to talk. But compared to your father, the swordswoman said coldly, perhaps you are a little more solid. By the way, your acting just now was terrible. My dear Mira, if you want to participate in the game, you have to pay more? You don't even know how to pretend to be a pervert, Miranda said in disdain. Virgin. But Thales was not interested in bickering with her. At that moment, he felt complicated. He lowered his head gloomily. Mira, Thales said in a daze, what have you encountered all these years? What made you become who you are now? Hearing that, Miranda froze. A lot. She spoke slowly. Countless scenes flashed in her eyes. So many that I don't even want to count them. But it was only for a moment. She quickly regained her determination and became that stubborn swordswoman again. But when I look back, I realize that everything started from that night. That night? Thales thought of something and looked up in surprise. Miranda nodded slightly, confirming his doubts. That night in Dragon Cloud City. Thales' eyes widened. Dragon's blood. Both the people we met that day, Miranda said, looking straight at him, and the things we did. And don't call me Mira. But Thales did not hear the rest of what she said. He only stared at Miranda in a daze. Is there always a moment in your life when you inadvertently look back on the past and realize that the decisions you made based on local conditions and adaptability would bring about such a significant, far-reaching, and even change everything? Before he knew it, the dark clouds that covered the sky had dispersed. The star lake became blue and clear again. It was sparkling. After an unknown amount of time, Thales exhaled. With an emotion that he could not completely understand, he said, whether it was bitterness, relief, or helplessness. But you just said, Mira, that you want to make a deal with me, and that you want to keep the most utilitarian part? Miranda thought about it and suddenly smiled. Yes, I want to use the most utilitarian part of myself in exchange for the most ideal part of you. In this way, you are the one who is at a disadvantage. Now, other than don't call me Mira, do you have any other questions? But Thales only stared at her saber in a daze. Mira. Miranda sighed and was about to speak. I actually have ulterior motives for going to Jade City on this trip, and I even harbor ill intentions, Thales said absent-mindedly. Miranda was startled, but she still nodded. I know. Don't call me Mira. I want to deal with Zayn, shove him headfirst into my toilet bowl, and flush him into the moat. Miranda frowned. I know. I said don't. So if you come with me, it is very likely that you will have to do something, not so glorious. I know. Miranda could not help but raise her voice, but in the end, she could not help but sigh. Don't call me that again. Fine, so does this mean that you agree? Thales slowly raised his head and released a haggard but relieved smile. Miranda was a little surprised by this. I understand, Mira, the question you asked me the moment you came in, the Duke said softly. Miranda was startled. What question? The Duke of Star Lake also came to the window and stretched. About Roshana Arund, I just remembered her story. Miranda's gaze moved slightly. Thales looked at the boundless star lake and sighed. In history, mathematician Roshana entered the Renaissance court and eventually became the queen of the virtuous King Mindis III. She was in charge of the royal family's finances, and even helped the newly established Department of Finance calculate the income and expenditure, and negotiated the accounts with the virtuous king's creditors. Because of this, people called her the Shrewd Queen, and from then on, the story of how the king and queen knew each other well, and how they lived in harmony. Thales quietly gazed at the intoxicating scenery before him. I was wondering why Gilbert always liked to tell me such nonsense in class. In the end, he was urging me to get married. But she did not do it willingly, the swordswoman said. Thales was startled. Miranda leaned on the windowsill with him and looked at the blue sky in the Central Territory. Ever since the birth of his youngest son, the old duke was worried that his eldest daughter's status would be too high, and her ability and personality would be too strong, which would benefit her future husband's family too much. He was also worried that she would bear a grudge because she lost her right of inheritance, which would be detrimental to her younger brother and the family. So, he gave Roshana two choices. Miranda's voice was faint. She could either marry a knight of humble birth with a large amount of dowry to eliminate the threat of her husband's family in the future, or she could directly abandon her family name and right of inheritance and leave Cold Castle, depriving her of the possibility of interfering with the family through blood ties. Thales was shocked. Is this part in the records about the Shrewd Queen? Miranda's gaze was mournful. Roshana, who was strong-willed by nature, chose the second option, which led to the subsequent story. She did not become the queen because she was born in Arund, but because she became the queen, the Arund family suddenly remembered her, and rushed to add her back into the family tree, announcing to the world that the new queen's surname was Arund. Thales listened to the story in astonishment. I did not know that there was such a part. Miranda nodded. The White Eagle family has always taken pride in being united and rarely having internal strife. But this disgraceful part of history was only recorded by the Sunset Priest, who was a secret witness to this agreement. It was hidden deep in the Forbidden Book section of Sunset Temple, and no one knew about it for a long time. Or rather, how much of the unity of the family, that the Arund family was praised for in history, was formed by the old duke's exiling of his close relatives and suppressing of his children to prevent them from killing each other. Thales' eyes turned and he clapped his hands. No wonder. No wonder the Arund family, as the #1 family in the Northern Territory, was suppressed so badly by Renaissance Palace and the Imperial Conference during the reign of the virtuous king. They were even used as a typical example of the virtuous king's reforms. Damn it! Gilbert even analyzed a lot of high-sounding topics like the balance of power between the relatives of the king and the courtiers. The related papers were stacked up to 3 feet thick. Miranda smiled nonchalantly. Just like that, the first Duchess of the Northern Territory did not appear. She was replaced by the Shrewd Queen. This is a happy and beautiful story that people can accept. A kind father, a filial daughter, brotherly siblings, a strong husband, and a happy and beautiful story. The swordswoman crossed her arms. But I feel that compared to the Queen Roshana, in the stories that have been told for thousands of years, Thales took over the conversation. Or is Duchess Roshana more suitable to be sung by bards everywhere? Miranda glanced at him but did not speak. But are you ready? The prince asked softly. In the next second, Thales extended his hand without warning and touched Miranda's waist. The swordswoman's gaze turned fierce. She immediately moved and pressed down on Thales' left hand. But she immediately frowned. Thales' extended palm was pressed on the hilt of the saber at her waist. Thales gave her an apologetic smile. She looked at Thales warily, but she still let go of his hand slowly. Thales then slowly raised his hand and drew out Soaring Eagle from her scabbard. I think the story of your ancestor, no, Roshana is the queen, and also my ancestor, tells us that unlike Extet, the Northlanders who are inexperienced, caught off guard, and can only bite the bullet and accept an archduchess, the Constellations have learned from their mistakes. They are used to it, and they know how to deal with such situations. The friction between the blade of Soaring Eagle and the leather gradually revealed itself. Just like 7 years ago, it shone with a cold light. It was also different from 7 years ago. It had gone through many hardships. Thales looked at the blade and said slowly, "Just look at Duchess Lyanna of Blade Edge Hill. Just look at Duchess Lyanna of Blade Edge Hill." Compared to direct objections, They know how to tear you apart in a gentle and courteous manner within the current system of rules. The prince sighed. After all, even the queen of the conquerors of the north, who ascended to the supreme throne 300 years ago, did not end up well. Asterisk slap. Asterisk just when 1/3 of the blade was drawn out, Miranda pressed down on Thales's hand again. She slowly exerted force and sent Soaring Eagle back into its scabbard without any hesitation. That's because she was not strong enough. Thales arched an eyebrow. Not strong enough? Queen Erica is an existence who invaded and seized Cold Castle 6 times and caused Extet to suffer a great loss. Miranda narrowed her eyes. At least she was not strong enough to make those who opposed her bow their heads, such as her younger brother. With a soft sound, Soaring Eagle's entire body sank into its scabbard. Thales could only sigh and let go. Miranda shook her head at him. I have a question, the prince muttered. If I really wanted you to marry me and become my queen, then I would accept you and be willing to help you take back the Northern Territory. Miranda thought for a while. Are you trying to say that you would only help me take back the Northern Territory if I offered myself to you and let you *CK me to your heart's content? Mira, Star Lake Castle is not Broken Dragon Fortress. When we have time, we should talk about your choice of words in front of the prince. Thales sighed. What if I did? Miranda sneered. If you really did that, then it would prove your character, and it would also prove that Cohen was wrong. Then, whether I submit to your father or surrender to you, it would be the same. She said nonchalantly. So, I will first break your legs, then go to Renaissance Palace with the grievance that I was forcibly taken by the prince. Thales furrowed his eyebrows. Go to my father to seek justice? The swordswoman shook her head. No, I will prove to him and the kingdom that after this incident, I have become enemies with the prince, and we cannot live under the same sky. So in the fight between the 2 Jade Stars, I must stand on the king's side. Then, I will conveniently give your father the same conditions. I will give up the Northern Territory for him, and he will grant me the title of Duke. I will still get what I want. Thales looked incredulous. As I said, Miranda shook her head. No matter what, I have to find my own way out. But I'm missing a stepping stone. Thales gulped. As expected. Control your lower half and live happily for the rest of your life. Then Lady Miranda arund. Thales sighed, turned around and said with a serious expression, Are you willing to be my wife? Miranda was stunned when she heard this, but she looked at him for a long time and understood something. No, I'm not willing. Thales nodded. Then, are you willing to be my queen? No, I'm not willing either. Thales met her eyes. If that's the case, Miranda arund, are you willing to be my knight? In the study room of Star Lake Castle, the teenager and the swordswoman looked at each other in silence. After a moment, Miranda smiled. She took a step back and faced Thales. I am willing, Your Highness. Thales narrowed his eyes. Even if I might order you to do something unpleasant, such as swinging your sword at Raphael? Miranda was silent for a moment. Raphael is very important to me, Your Highness. Thales chuckled and shook his head. He waved his hand and said, I know, Mira. So I'm just playing, but he is not everything in my life. Miranda interrupted him with a sharp gaze. Far from it. This was out of Thales' expectations. He looked at the swordswoman in front of him in surprise. So, Your Highness, if he stands in your way and our way, I will be sad. At that moment, the sword of Neverwinter of Broken Dragon Fortress reached for the hilt at his waist, his murderous intent overflowing. But I will never hesitate. Thales was suddenly awestruck. He stared at her for a very, very long time. Miranda arund. What is she? A sword? Yes, but not all of it. A chess piece? Perhaps, but there is a discrepancy. A bargaining chip? Possible, but is it light or heavy? What do you think, King Kessel? Thales held the bone ring in his lapel. She is gathered under my banner, just like we planned. But not as we think for power, at least not as we think it is. No matter how you look at it, she does not seem like a chess piece in your chessboard, an existence under your rules. Thales curled up the corner of his mouth. Because she is a person. Damn it, a person. Outside the chessboard. What do you think, father? His thoughts flashed past in a flash. In the next second, Thales smiled faintly. Then Mira, welcome to Star Lake Fortress. Even though we will soon be embarking on a journey. Miranda smiled too. Wait. She shook her head, pulled out Soaring Eagle from her waist, and pressed it against her palm, an ancient Northland ritual. Thales was stunned, and immediately sighed. He pulled out the JC dagger from his waist, pressed it against his palm, and felt a headache-inducing familiarity in front of him. An oath of alliance? As expected of the prince who returned from the north. Miranda's eyes lit up. You have seen a lot. More than a lot. Thales thought helplessly. More than you can imagine. In the next second, both of them exerted force at the same time, feeling the pain between their palms and the blade. So, Thales Jadestar, from today onwards, I swear loyalty to you and serve you. Miranda put down Soaring Eagle and solemnly extended her hand. Blood flowed from her palm. In return, you will fully support me in inheriting the throne. If necessary, you will not hesitate to take the field personally. Announce to the kingdom that you will only acknowledge one master of the Northern Territory. Thales exhaled, and similarly extended his hand that was covered in blood. He finished her sentence. Duchess Miranda Arund. With a clap, both of their palms clasped tightly. So, from today onwards Thales was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly remembered the unpleasant memory of Gertoxa. He could not help but sigh. You have said what I wanted to say. As for what I did not say. Blood flowed from their wrists. Thales gestured with his lips listlessly. Here, it's all in the blood. Miranda frowned, but still shook her hand in annoyance to seal the oath. But when he thought about it, Thales could not help but ask, are there any restraining measures, such as swearing a poison oath or placing a curse? What if someone betrays me? Miranda shook her head in disdain. She tightened her grip. There is only one situation where I will break my promise. When you are not strong enough. Damn it. It hurts a little. Thales looked at her suspiciously. Don't misunderstand, Your Highness. Although we have reached an oath, if you don't meet my expectations, or even drag me down, Miranda uncharacteristically blinked her eyes maliciously, I will abandon you without the slightest hesitation. Thales' smile was a little stiff. How heartwarming. The prince rolled his eyes. Then what if I betray you? In the next second, Miranda pulled her hand away, and Thales could not help but be pulled forward by her. The prince finally stopped moving. He was about to complain when he realized that Miranda was right in front of him at that moment. And they were so close that they could almost kiss each other. Thales could even see the swordswoman's eyelashes clearly, and he could also see the determination hidden behind her eyes. Your eyes, they are gray. How rare. Miranda observed him carefully and said faintly. Thales had a strange expression on his face. Is that so? Your eyes are also very beautiful. But Miranda's voice quickly turned cold. Remember, you are a descendant of Jadestar, and I am a descendant of Arund. It is unfortunate, but betrayal is destined to be a part of our lives. Miranda's gaze turned cold. Just like revenge. Thales froze. That's why, little brat. In the next second, the hostility on Miranda's face disappeared. It was replaced by a bright and beautiful smile that had never been seen before, but it made people feel a chill in their hearts. Before she turned to leave, she smiled and pinched Thales' stunned face. Be good, don't be naughty. Thales was dumbfounded and exasperated. I am your master. You have to have the attitude of a subordinate, understand? Star Lake Castle is not a place outside the law. With an expression on his face, Doyle walked into the study and watched in surprise as Miranda left with a smile on her face. Could it be? Wow, Your Highness. Doyle seemed to have understood something. He looked pleasantly surprised and clicked his tongue repeatedly. Tisk tisk tisk. Congratulations. Thales looked at him suspiciously. What's wrong? What are you congratulating me for? Nothing, it's just, hee. In the next second, Doyle quietly pointed at Miranda's back and proudly gave her a thumbs up, revealing an evil smile that said everything without saying a word. Awesome! At that moment, Doyle's smile was so bright, so dazzling, and so sincere. So much so that he did not notice that Prince Thales' expression had unknowingly become more and more terrifying. Doyle, I heard from Officer Sonia that you met her during your night patrol? Ha! Oh yes. Your Highness. The fortress flower. Heh, She was discussing some academic topics with Zombie. You know, academic topics. Don't worry, I didn't disturb you. He, after all, it's an important diplomatic victory for Star Lake Castle. That night, Star Lake Castle was not peaceful. It was said that the Duke, who had always been good-tempered, was enraged. He personally instructed Penal Officer Patterson to execute the most horrifying and inhumane punishment since the establishment of the Star Lake Guards, First-Class Vanguard Officer Danny Doyle, or DD, as soon as possible. Confiscated the teddy doll on his bed. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.